Right. Muy buenos días, muy buenas tardes. Acá Walter Chalier, jefe de la biblioteca de la CEPAL. Espero que estén todos muy bien en su casa, me imagino. Quiero agradecer a Iryna Kuchma, de aceptar nuestra invitación a hacer una presentación sobre Sustainable, Cooperative and Non-APC Publishing Models, Results of the OpenAIRE Report. Ustedes ya conocen el formato. Iryna nos va a hacer una presentación de 45 minutos, un poquito menos quizás. Y mientras ustedes pueden enviar sus preguntas en inglés o en español, como prefieran, por el chat. Claudia, mi colega Claudia y yo, nosotros juntamos todas las preguntas, organizamos un poquito las preguntas y luego de esos 45 minutos haremos las preguntas a Iryna. Iryna va a responder en inglés, va a hacer la presentación también en inglés, pero ustedes pueden hacer sus preguntas en español, no hay ningún problema. Nosotros vamos a traducir sus preguntas del español al inglés para Iryna. Iryna, how are you doing?
Buenos dias, sir. I guess that's as much as I can speak Spanish. Sorry about that. I mean, I can understand, probably I can read your questions, but unfortunately, I won't be able to speak in Spanish. So you'll have to bear with my English.
That's no problem at all. As I said before, we try to find a balance between Spanish and English presentation. So this is a series of webinars. We do one webinar per month. First, I would like you to present yourself very briefly, and then it's really I'll give you the floor so that you can start your presentation. We're very much looking forward to this presentation. As you know, everything that has to do with non-APC open access publishing models is of particular interest in Latin America and the Caribbean. So we're very curious and very much looking forward to your presentation.
Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity. I work for IFOL Open Access Program, and in this program we work with library consortia in Africa, Asia, Europe on open access, open data, open science. In Europe, I'm also involved in OpenAIRE project, and there I coordinate activities in Eastern Europe, where non-APC publishing is really big. And we worked with a group of my colleagues, whom you can see on this slide, to come up with recommendations towards sustainable, cooperative, and non-APC open access publishing models. And unfortunately, a lot of my content is based on European situation. So it would be really great to hear what you think from Latin American perspective, whether it works, how it works. And they were produced with input from publishers who publish journals, books, using non-APC models, and also library consortia and librarians supporting publishing technically, editorially, and also financially. So it's a really collaborative approach. And the way we organized this work was that we asked non-APC publishers to fill in SWOT analysis, indicating their strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. And then we had a workshop where we worked in small groups to come up with some recommendations. So what I'll be talking about showcases selected non-APC collaborative publishing models, and also provide some recommendations for funders and policymakers, and also for the publishing community. And the idea is, of course, to have a real sustainable, diverse publishing future where collaborative and non-APC publishing is a viable, cost and resource effective alternative to APC-based business models. So I'll start with some good practice examples from non-APC publishers. Again, apologies that these examples come from Europe, but that's where we are based. So in this report, we highlight some examples from institutional library publishing programs. For example, University of Utrecht had a very interesting journal incubator program managed by the library. And also we have an example from Hungary, University of Debrecen, University National Library, and also another example from Switzerland. And they basically show how libraries provide an infrastructure. So they have open journal systems platform, and in some cases they support journals on the management level, like in this case of Utrecht University, and also help with business model developments. We also highlight some examples where libraries are not really involved, and journals are published just with an institutional support and third-party funding by researchers themselves. And it's an example from a new open gender journal, and also Middle East topics and arguments, and ZBW Journal of Replication Studies. So all these examples come from Germany, where researchers themselves work voluntarily as editors and publishers with some grant funding. We also looked at national collaborative funding and publishing, and that's where I would like to spend some time, because I think that's really a future for us in Europe, if we could come up with some national level models where libraries, universities, funders, publishers could work together to ensure sustainable non-APC publishing that would really work well. So I'll highlight a couple of examples from Croatia, Finland, France, Norway, and Serbia. Sorry, my slides got stuck. I don't know why. Yeah, hope now we can see. So this is an example from Croatia, and it's a joint initiative of research and education network. So for example, in Latin America, it's CLARA, which is a regional research and education network. I don't know what is the name of National Research and Education Network in Chile, but it's basically an organization that provides connectivity, internet connectivity to universities, and also cloud-based services. So in Croatia, this kind of organization provides cloud storage for this national journal portal, and it's managed by library community. So it includes almost 500 journals. Almost all of them are open access journals, and they also develop value-added services on top of journal content. And of course, they ensure integration with ORCID and everything. Another example is from Finland, and that's a project of Finnish Scholarly Society and journal editors and publishers. and it is supported by national level funding and endorsement, and they've just started, so it's a journal portal based on open journal systems. All Finnish journals are openly available there, and I think the business model they are looking at is that support would come from institutions, from journals, and from the ministry. And of course, journals don't charge APCs from their authors. So it's a new model which is still being tested. Another interesting example is from France, which is also kind of national level initiative where journals are published on top of repositories. So they use archive, high energy physics repository, and also national repository OWL. And this is where preprints are deposited in the repositories, and then a number of journals, so I'm counting, so like over a dozen of journals collect submitted preprints from those repositories, do peer review, and publish journal articles. So it's an example of overlay journal platform based on repositories, and I think that's also something that could work in Latin America, where there is a very strong network of repositories. And in terms of funding, supported by the ministries as part of National Open Science Plan. Another example is from Norway, and it's a national consortium of libraries, which is supported by the Ministry of Education and Research, Research Council, and also Norwegian Association of Higher Education Institutions. And they're just launching this non-APC national journal portal for journals in social science and humanities. And funding will come from the government and also from universities. And my last national level example is from Serbia, and it's an interesting approach where they're building a national citation index and also publish journals. So it was supported by the government first, and now this portal asks participating publishers contribute a certain amount of money, and in return it provides a platform with all value-added services that you can see here. So it's really cost efficient for publishers because with very little investment they can make use of this platform and publish without charging APCs. We also looked in this report into international collaborative funding and publishing models, for example, Open Library of Humanities, annual reviews that it introduced, subscribe to Open program where institutions could support flipping of subscription-based journals into open access without APCs. Knowledge Unledged, which is a platform for publishing open access books. Scope, this scholarly consortium on high energy physics, where institutions and governments, actually governments, contribute funding, and journals are published without charging APCs. Then there is also an interesting model, Language Science Press, which works with volunteer editors, and they have hundreds of researchers who donate their time and labor to edit books in linguistics. And then some other examples like transcript, open library, political science. And we also looked into collaborative publishing support services. So these are all examples from Germany, and these are platforms that, for example, Open Journal System platform, or from Center for Digital Systems, Freie Universität Berlin, that offer publishing platforms to journals from different universities, and they don't need to worry about technical infrastructure. Then our next chapter in this report looked into sustainability, because we said in the title that we look into sustainable models, and that's a question that perhaps would be good to discuss today as well. What can we actually consider sustainable, and what are the aspects of sustainability? So of course there are financial aspects, then this balance of cost and earnings and cash flow, but it's also sustainable human and technical resources. And we also think that time is an important factor in sustainability. And that's a question that we had. What is a suitable time window for achieving sustainability and having this sustainability in place? Another question that we struggled with was sustainability for whom? Because of course it's sustainability for those who publish those books and journals, but then it should be sustainable for those who would like to make use of these services. It should be sustainable for institutions, for readers. So it's basically about all stakeholders involved in designing this well-functioning market for open access publishing using non-APC business models. And like I said, we are looking into Europe, but ideally we should have some kind of global agreement how we address these issues and move on with them. We also looked into issues. What issues are there that users are facing with sustainability? What are the issues for new publishers? Because again, in many cases, those who practice non-APC publishing are usually new and emerging publishing initiatives. What are the issues for institutions and funders? And we felt like for users, for researchers, the issue is that non-APC business models are really invisible, because researchers sometimes even don't know that such business model exists. And also same for this library subsidy models. So many researchers might not realize that libraries or institutions are subsidizing. So we felt like we need to make researchers more aware of how these non-APC business models work. In terms of funding, there is an issue of grant funding. So for example, if these business models are practiced by new and emerging publishers, they might have access to grants and they might kick off these initiatives, but that's not enough. So you need to have more stable and longer term funding. And then there are institutional limitations. So in many cases, universities are willing to support non-APC journals and book publishers. Libraries are willing to do that, but they don't have workflows for that. So their accounting offices know how to handle APCs because there is an invoice. They know how to make this article level transaction, but in many cases, university accounting offices are surprised when you start saying that I am supporting as a member this journal, because this membership model or institutional subsidy model is something that is very unusual for accounting departments in the universities. And looking at all those issues, we came up with some suggestions how they could be mitigated. And for example, if we talk about making new and emerging initiatives more visible, maybe we need something like a marketplace where these initiatives are described. So for example, what is the scale of this publishing initiative? What is disciplinary reach, whether it's a new initiative or already established initiative, which technology is being used, what are financial and governance aspects, and if, for example, library consortia have this kind of information, maybe it would be easier for them to allocate money and also convince their accounting offices that it's a credible and common way of supporting these initiatives. Then another opportunity is shared and permanent infrastructural support. And I showed these examples from Germany where centers at universities provide basically national level infrastructure for journal publishers. And then it's really important to share experiences. And in some cases, when we talk about cost-effective solutions, maybe shared financial, legal, and marketing services is a way to go, because sometimes these kind of services are really expensive for small publishers. And if they pool resources, maybe they could all use same financial, legal, marketing service provider, which would make it cost-effective. So in all this transition to stable, efficient, effective, sustainable non-APC publishing, we felt like government funded universities could provide financial and technical support. There is a need for stronger community in this area and academic support. And we need to make sure that we make it clear to researchers that non-APC doesn't mean that quality is lower. Quality standards are the same as in APC publishing. And cooperation and pooling of resources for more visibility, scalability, and improved financials. And simplified funding streams so that it would be easier for institutions to provide this financial support as membership and donations. And these are some of the recommendations that we suggested, that some of the actions that funders and policymakers could take. So when we speak about funding, it would be really great if funders acknowledge and endorse collaborative non-APC open access publishing as a strong way of achieving open access as all other models like transformative agreements and APCs. And if funders endorse it, researchers would be more aware. And it's really important to have non-APC business models clearly described in institutional and national open science policies and mandates. For example, in French National Open Science Plan, it's really clear that non-APC publishing is what France supports as a way to go with open access. And it would also bring some new opportunities, because then we'll have a more transparent publishing market. It would be clear who offers what kind of services, what is the structure of publishing initiatives. So it would be really for the benefits of community and funders. And there are already trusted bodies in place that could evaluate existing and new publishing channels if needed, to help researchers and funders and universities to make informed funding decisions. And institutions and funders could really help a lot in setting up the sustainable, collaborative, and non-APC publishing if they provide more stable funding through medium and long-term funding. And of course, here, inclusivity is a key. And what was also important for us to stress in this report, that if we want to have efficient and innovative scientific publishing systems, those publishing systems should remain in the hands of scientific community. They should be supported by law and society, libraries, universities, and these kind of services shouldn't be outsourced to commercial companies. And I'm really looking forward to the results of the standard, which was commissioned by Coalition S to explore collaborative non-commercial publishing models for open access. So it was OpenAIRE that won the standard, with participation from Redelic America, and also Spark Europe, Utrecht University, Director of Open Access Journals, a university in Norway, and also LIBER, which is European Library Association, Open Access Scholarly Publishers Association, CSII, and RESH as partners. So the standard has just been awarded, and I hope in the coming months we'll see some recommendations how funders could support collaborative non-APC non-commercial publishing in more efficient way. I also mentioned quality, because that's unfortunately something that sometimes comes in discussions, that we need to ensure that non-APC practices same sound publication practices as APC-based publishing. And again, we already have trusted bodies like Director of Open Access Journals, Open Access Publishers Associations, and others who could index, showcase these non-APC publishing services. And if there is a standardized, transparent process and agreed set of universal criteria, what we consider healthy editorial practices and robust peer review, it would be easier to highlight these initiatives. And of course, here we also need to ensure that the way institutions and countries evaluate and assess and reward researchers change, that journal impact factor is no longer a basis for evaluating research productivity of researchers. So we really need new approaches to research assessment and evaluation. That's something that is already happening in many institutions and countries. And our final set of recommendations is around partnerships and communities, because we felt like we need a stronger community and stronger voice of non-APC publishers globally. And it's an opportunity for all of us involved in this to decide when, how we would like to go to ensure that there is this sustainable future. And there was a question which I saw briefly about inclusivity, and that's exactly with these collaborations, you can make sure that even small open access publishers have as strong voice as those big commercial publishers, because if they all speak together, that would give more leverage and power with funders, institutions, and also policymakers. And shared infrastructures and services have a big role to play, and this is where institutions or research and education networks could help. And it's also an opportunity to showcase innovations, because these new open access publishers, they're just starting, so they don't have all this legacy publishing behind them. They could start with enriched publications, compatibility, interoperability with other platforms, and leveraging on already existing infrastructures. So there are, I believe there are a lot of good opportunities. And publishers with whom we worked to produce this report stress that there is a need for regional platforms and also for a global platform where non-APC publishing community could get together and discuss and share some good practices, ideas, strategies, because unfortunately we felt like so far globally there is no such platform, because then non-APC, everyone involved in non-APC publishing could speak with this shared community-based voice and do this collective advocacy to policymakers and decision makers. And then there was also a request for sharing good practices, because in many cases, so small publishers reinvent the wheels or don't know about good practices that come from other publishers. So that's also something that we would like to work on somehow to ensure that there is a regional platform, like in our case in Europe, but also a global platform for non-APC publishing, and this kind of good practices are shared and discussed. And these are some references. I think you'll all have my presentation with some more links, and I don't know how much time I took. Yeah, I think it's less than 45 minutes, but I think it's really important to have a discussion with you, and thanks a lot for already sending your questions. So maybe I'll stop sharing for now so that it would be easier for me to see questions.
All right. Thank you very much, Iryna. Very interesting presentation. One question I'd like to ask you is, Plan S presents APC as a transition towards full open access. What's your view on this?
Well, I think in Plan S, a lot has changed. So maybe when it was first launched, there was a clear preference for an APC model or those transformative models where subscription-based journals are flipped to open access with library consortia funding. But I think now with this example of a tender that I showed, Plan S is really looking into supporting non-APC publishing on the same level, because what they say now is that they are route agnostic. So open access could be provided via journals that used to be subscription, but flip to open access with these transformative agreements via APC publishing, and with APC they ask for transparent pricing schemes, and they also say that open access could be provided via platforms, repositories, publishing platforms that don't charge APCs. So I think when those who won a tender will provide some results, it would make non-APC publishing as strong in coalition S and Plan S as APC. And also again, when we talk about Plan S, so we have, for example, France that supports Plan S, but has a strong tradition supporting national non-APC publishing initiatives. So I really have confidence that with current setting of coalition S, non-APC publishing won't be this younger sister or brother lost somewhere. But I'm not a Plan S person, so I'm not part of coalition S, so I can't really speak on behalf of them.
All right. You already mentioned in your presentation, and you also mentioned it now in in your answer, this tender, which is a very interesting consortium because it has partners from Europe as well as Latin America. As associate partners, we have America. So that Redalica America. So that's really interesting. What do you expect from this tender? What you think is going to be the outcome? What kind of impact is this going to have? I think we expect the results by the end of this year. So what can we expect there?
Well, I hope that they would follow our approach, that they would describe existing non-APC business models, because what I showed that there are many of them, and with our analysis, it was really a very preliminary analysis. So I hope they would make more precise analysis, also providing some recommendations to those who would like to start publishing using non-APC business models. And also they would provide some strategies for library consortia, universities, funders, how this kind of models are supported. Because if there is this article transaction model, APC, it's always easy because that's easy. There is an invoice, invoice is paid, service is provided. But here we're talking about longer term support to platforms, to collaborative publishing models, and that's something that is still a little bit blurry in traditional funding schemes. So I hope that they would come up with some suggestions, because that was what's specifically requested from Coalition S funders, how they as funders and institutions support non-APC publishing. So I hope they will help with that. And it really includes journal publishers, book publishers, a lot of players, libraries. So it would also be, I think, shared recommendations from our communities, library and publishing community.
Okay, thank you for that. Claudia, you also have a few questions.
Thanks, Iryna. Regarding or continue with libraries, what kind of alliances and collaboration should be present between libraries and other stakeholders of an open access publishing landscape?
So we had a discussion about that in German-speaking library community, for example, in Germany, Switzerland, Austria. They're regional event for libraries, and library consortia are very much interested in supporting this kind of initiatives. They just need a financial model, how they can do that. And we're also talking to OA 2020 initiative that encourages transformative agreements, and they want to highlight non-APC publishing as sustainable and appropriate road to open access publishing as well. And they are in discussions with library consortia what library consortia might need to be able to support easier this kind of initiatives. So, for example, with transformative agreements, there is this registry of already existing agreements, what kind of wording, what kind of financial procedures different library consortia use to support these transformations, and maybe there will be something like that in the near future, where we could see already existing examples of collaborative support from library consortia to non-APC initiatives. So these are just some examples we started exploring in our European context, and I guess in Latin American context there might be more examples, because unfortunately I don't work in Latin America, so I don't really know much about library consortia there.
Thank you. Sorry. Another question from our one of a participant is about how do we address the importance issue of inclusiveness. In your research, did you come across any good example which we can use as a model in the inclusiveness aspect?
Well, that's a great question, and we could probably spend a week discussing it, because I agree that it's super important. So what we were thinking of, that if there are clear, transparent rules, so for example, if we say that those publishers that don't charge APCs, publish open access journals, and would like to receive some support from community, libraries, institutions, etc., they should follow certain principles. So they should have clearly described governance structures in place. They probably shouldn't be commercial, or maybe they can be they can make some profit, but they should have this requirement to invest the profit they receive into their operations. They can't be bought by other companies, because that's also something that we want to prevent, that we as community would be supporting some initiatives that later on will be acquired by some large publishers or services. And then there are certain rules and procedures how peer review should work, and it doesn't really matter whether you're a small publisher, whether you're a big publisher. If you provide a valid service for the community, then we as community are willing to fund you. I think rules, like clear rules and procedures, will help with this. But if our rules career has some more suggestions or ideas about that, I'm really looking forward to that.
Thanks, Iryna. Wouter, your turn.
Right. Thank you. You already mentioned inclusiveness. one of the very important aspects of inclusiveness is the issue of multilingualism. Is this something that you're working on in an active way to make sure that publishing is not only, let's say, an Anglo-Saxon idea, but something that reflects the production in other languages? I mean, the production in other languages, and so highlights also the large diversity, the variety that one has in quality research output.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. Multilinguality is really important, because I think it's very unfair that English is a lingua franca in a lot of research areas, and that's something that we should all try to change collectively. And I showed this example from Croatia, a national journal portal, and you saw that they have over 500 journals, and that's a question that they usually hear in Croatia, that you're a really small country, and why do you even publish these 500 journals? And their answer is that we are publishing them because we want to make sure that researchers in our country could discuss research topics in a native language. And if you want to have proper discussions, proper research discussions in your language, you need terminology, you need to be writing, you need to actually be using that language in research discussions. And it was also a very important topic for me, because I'm a Ukrainian. So when Soviet Union collapsed, Ukrainian wasn't a language of science and research. It was forbidden to do research and science in Ukrainian, and then we had to start from scratch to redefine terminology that existed before Soviet Union that was used in Ukrainian, and use it because especially if we talk about social science and humanities, there is no way, like even if we believed that English is the way to go, there is no way we can do research, because our research participants don't speak English, and our data, our materials are not in English. And I really believe that all those who adopt open access, open science policies, they should start from principles that stress that it's really important for countries to support research in the language of that country, and researchers should be awarded for doing research in the language of the country and not only in English. And there are already some good examples how it's done in France and in Finland.
All right. Yeah, thank you for that. And I think this is also definitely something that here from Latin America, we also try to highlight. I mean, and I mean, as you know, I mean, Latin America has a long tradition, more than 20 years of open access publishing. Also with this, the idea to highlight the quality production that that we have here in the region, in Spanish, in Portuguese, and in other languages that are not English languages. So I think there again, there's a lot we can learn from that experience.
Yeah, there is a lot we can learn from you in Europe. So.
Yeah. You mentioned at the beginning of your presentation the problem of, or the challenge of, invisibility of the non-APC publishing models. Can you explain a little bit what you're doing to change this? You also mentioned the marketplace as a solution to exchange experiences and to basically help each other. Is there a way that institutions from Latin America and the Caribbean could be part of this marketplace and how can we move forward with this?
Well, this marketplace that I mentioned doesn't really exist yet, and I think what institutions in Latin America and Caribbean could do is they could actually start this marketplace. Like, we can start it together. So if we agree that we need to be more visible to the outside world, because we share same principles, we follow more or less similar approaches, how we publish journals and books, and of course there are differences how universities are funded and how library consortia could support some of these initiatives, but I think those smaller details could be addressed and resolved separately. But if we agree that together we could define a set of priority areas and actions for us where we would like to focus. So, for example, we'll feel like in the next 12 months, we'd like to make sure that researchers and universities all over the world are aware of non-APC publishing as credible, stable way of making research available. If we define those goals together and implement them in our respective regions, that would be already a step. And I think a lot could be done virtually. So before we were thinking, before COVID-19, we were thinking that maybe we need to really meet face-to-face because that's important. But now this face-to-face meeting isn't really an option. So there are even no financial challenges to organize this meeting. So I guess we just need to agree that it's important and just join forces and try to set up this platform.
Well, I mean, talking about a marketplace, what would you like to see in this marketplace? What kind of, when you define a marketplace, what do you have in mind?
Well, when we started describing it, we thought that it could be some kind of registry of existing non-APC publishing initiatives. So you would probably have short information about this publishing entity, then a description of financial model, description of governance model, who actually decides how this company operates, disciplinary area, languages in which these journals and books are published, and maybe also it's a place where this publishing initiatives could indicate that, for example, I would like to learn more about certain aspect of publishing, for example, or I'm really struggling with legal advice, and if others are also struggling with similar legal or financial advice, maybe that's a space where they could join each other and I don't know, approach someone for this legal advice. So it could be a place where publishers would indicate their needs, and also would indicate if they have some good practices to share. So if they're willing to, I don't know, mentor other publishers, for example, Language Science Press would explain how they manage to involve hundreds of editors that really do high quality work for them without being paid. So these were some initial suggestions, and if you have any other suggestions, what could be included, or if you have totally different ideas about this marketplace, we're also open to that, because we're just starting
Yeah. All right. Yeah. That's great, and happy to continue this conversation, and people in participating in this session are obviously also invited to brainstorm together with you. Claudia.
Iryna, I want to move to another topic. You mentioned the trusted bodies for evaluating and assessing research publication channels. What changes do you think are necessary to make it over the evaluation processes in order to ensure quality, credibility, and reliability of the publication channels?
Well, so I think such trusted bodies already exist, like, for example, directory of open access journals. But sometimes it's really hard for a journal which is published by a group of researchers, and I'm speaking from my experience because I work as an associate editor for director of open access journals, and I review journal applications from Ukraine, and I see really high quality journals in terms of content, but the way they provide information on their website, especially the way they provide information in English, is really confusing. And if there is some support available, how these journals could better organize information, and that's something that was a project that we did in Serbia with journal publishers, that we just basically provided templates how journal editorial policies should look like, how open access policies should look like, what copyright agreements should be in place, how they should embed and display Creative Commons licenses on their journal's websites. If this kind of good practice is available, then it would be easier for journals to be included in the directory of open access journals, because then you can immediately see this journal quality. Then also in some cases on the national level, there are national bodies that maintain accredited journal lists, and I guess there is a need for an advocacy to those bodies that even small new publisher, if they follow certain criteria, they could be included in those lists and endorsed as reputable publishers. And I guess here we could use universities' names and community representation as one of the quality criteria for endorsement, because if we see that it's really a trusted body in certain disciplinary community in certain country, then it's a good enough reason to endorse it as a trusted initiative. And when we speak about endorsing, we're not speaking about blacklisting, we're speaking about whitelisting, about like really showcasing strengths and value this kind of initiatives bring to research and education community in the country, but also in the region and globally. But that's also an open question. So we suggested some trusted bodies that could evaluate, but maybe there is a need for more or different bodies.
Thank you, Iryna. Bauto, your turn, please.
All right, thank you. The question, the 1 million question that that we always ask. I mean, of course, we all know that in Europe and Latin America and the Caribbean, a lot of institutions are still addicted to the traditional scholarly communication system, including the impact factors. How can we get rid of this addiction, apart from all the, I mean, what we already mentioned, etc., but are there any interesting approaches that you've seen in your experience?
Well, I think we really need to push for all those who evaluate researchers and institutions that journal impact factor was never meant as a tool to evaluate researchers. It was invented as a tool to help libraries to subscribe to resources when they had limited funding and a lot of journals. They needed a tool to decide. So that's how this journal impact factor came into life. And its inventor kept saying that it shouldn't be used to evaluate researchers. And I think now we should, like, really all universities and funders should really say we stop it. It's simplistic. It doesn't tell anything about the quality of an individual article or individual researcher, and it really harms the system. Then another step that should be taken is that researchers shouldn't be competing with each other. So it's not a competition that should be rewarded. It's not those who are the strongest, but it's collaboration that should be rewarded. And especially now in times like this, where we see that it's really not up to an individual researcher or research team to come up with a solution that we need to find COVID-19. We should really see how we reward good science, and good science is timely, quality, transparency, etc. And not we should stop arguing whose name should be the first or second on a journal article, and make sure that all types of contributions are listed in a journal article, and all contributors are considered like almost equal participants. And then maybe this whole notion of journal article is also outdated, because it's a construction from hundreds of, 500 of years ago, and it doesn't really work in today's world, where there are efficient tools to disseminate research results quickly, and maybe this journal article format doesn't really reflect the needs that we have as research community, and the need is to share information quickly with those who need to have this information to come up with their research and ideas. Also speaking about those journals with high impact factors, that they usually have high impact factors because they publish sensational research, novel research. But I think that's not a problem. We don't really need, I don't know, a dozen of novel ideas. We need sound research that might not be that novel, but even if it's a small step ahead, that's something that should be shared and available to the community to build on, because I think it's a lot faster to build on those small steps than wait for 3 years or 5 years or 10 years until you can really write your article of all your career and then publish it when it's really too late for others to build on, because things move on. So I think it's really a good moment to reconsider what is a journal, what is an article. Do we really need to stick to these journal issues? How the article of the future would look like?
Do you think that researchers are aware of this these changes that are happening, and that we see all over the world? I mean, this innovation in scholarly communication. do you think that researchers are fully aware of that? Do you think that, for example, they understand what Plan S is, and how can we, and if they don't, how can we help researchers to understand that they also should get rid of this addiction to the impact factors and the international journals and this whole traditional game?
Well, I saw some suggestions that maybe CVs shouldn't even include name of a journal. So it's just enough to mention an article that you published and then give a link to that article, but this journal name shouldn't be mentioned on the CV. Another important step that needs to happen, because it's like you said, maybe those researchers who are involved in international collaborative research, maybe they are aware, or those researchers from disciplines that have strong tradition of open access for years, or preprints, they are aware, but there are thousands of social scientists or humanities who might not even follow all these latest developments. And I think that's where education is really important, that when early career researchers are trained, they should be trained on how to do science efficiently, and what's efficient nowadays should be really decided and practiced, and also supervisors who work with PhD students should realize that open access and open science creates a lot of opportunities for early career researchers, but there are still a lot of challenges. So I think if we speak about priorities for open science development, I would say addressing the needs of early career researchers and making sure that early career researchers are not the ones who suffer when they practice open science, because they could still make a successful research career if they practice open science. So that's a framework that we should set up in our institutions. And here is a role for universities and also for funders that support research and drive research agenda. And I'm really optimistic that with COVID-19, we really see how important preprints are now. So at least maybe preprints would become an accepted way of communicating research results.
All right, thank you. Let's, we have this United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals, this 2030 agenda, which is basically a framework for joint action in climate change, poverty, education, and many other areas. How do you see the role? How can open access, open science contribute to this UN agenda, Sustainable Development Goals? And that's one question. And then the second question and the final question, when you think about 2030, looks like many years, but it's not. You're gonna get there very fast. How do you how do you think that scholarly communication is going to look like in 2030?
Yeah, that's really, the last one is really a difficult question. So let's start with the first one. So I think open science should be a fundamental principle of achieving the Sustainable Development Goals, because I don't see how else we would be able to achieve them, because problems we're struggling with are usually in Africa, Asia, so I guess Latin America as well. I don't know much, but I guess these are the regions that are really striving to achieve sustainable development goals, and they should be the ones setting up the rules how research should work globally, because that's where majority of people live, and they shouldn't follow this global north agenda. They should follow global south agendas, as it's already happening really well in Latin America, and should be more articulated in African and Asian countries, and use open access, open data, open science as a tool to achieve sustainable development goals. And speaking about 2030, it's, well, I hope that we won't have journals any longer. So we'll just have communities of researchers doing research collaboratively, sharing this research collaboratively, and also providing meaningful feedback to each other on the results achieved. So I believe that we'll have some common publicly funded infrastructure platforms that would ensure that researchers and journal publishers don't need to worry about IT part. This IT part will be handled by those who are professionals in handling IT, and those who make research available, they could just focus on value-added services and quality, open, public peer review, and really solve research problems and not technical and financial problems. And I think with going open access, if we go really supporting all ways to achieve open access, not only APCs, there will be money in the system. So if we allocate some of the money that were used to fund subscriptions to fund collaborative non-APC publishing, we can achieve same level of quality. We can have a lot more meaningful services to local research communities, and also we could solve all these global problems that we are facing. But of course, in 2030, we'll have new global problems, I'm afraid. So that created even more pressure for us to have an efficient system right now and sort out all these problems that we're still having in this legacy scholarly publishing. And I think it's really up to Latin American publishers, African publishers, Asian publishers, to European publishers, I mean small publishers, to define the agenda.
Yep. All right. Thank you. As you know, in the United Nations 2030 agenda, this last decade now, 2020, 2030 is called the decade of action. And I think this is a very beautiful way of putting it. And I think this is also definitely valid for scholarly communication. I think this is an opportunity that we have now to innovate, to look for more diversity, more inclusive scholarly communication system. So I think it's a decade of opportunities, a decade of and for us for action to make this all happen, right?
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Okay, well, thank you very much, Iryna. Very nice talking to you as always. Thank you very much for your presentation and for the conversation that we had after that. I really would like to thank also the whole library team and Claudia also the IT department who always supports us with this broadcast and with this webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next month, we're gonna take a little break, so there will be no webinar, but we will have our next webinar in August, so by the end of August, and we will of course inform everybody of the topic and the speaker of the August webinar. Muchas gracias a todos por su participación, por estar ahí con nosotros como siempre. Son tiempos difíciles para todos entonces y todas. Cuídense mucho y el siguiente webinar no es en julio, porque en julio tomamos una pequeña pausa, pero sí en agosto, y esperamos verlos de nuevo en agosto. Cuídense mucho y estaremos en contacto. Thank you very much, Iryna, and take care.
Thanks a lot, Wouter and Claudia and Rafael and Marlene, and thank you everyone for your questions. It was really great discussion, and I hope we'll continue, and let's create this platform for non-APC publishing.
All right.
Thank you, and have a good day.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.